What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Upper Hand Fantasy Podcast. This is Faraz Siddiqui. I'm here with Zach Rizzuto. I'm trying to point. I'm not sure where you are on the stream, but what's up, man? How's it going on this Wednesday? 1 day away, baby.
One day away from the season. So pumped.
As they say, just one sleep away. And
yeah,
that's all I want to do right now.
And then a whole day of
work.
Go
to bed. I want to go to bed. I'm going to wake up and I want to watch football. That's basically what I want to do. But yeah, man, I'm excited. I'm super excited. We have a bunch of stuff to get into today. Normally on Wednesdays, what we like to do is we like to go over trades. So we talk about players you want to buy, players you want to sell based on their usage. Sometimes there are players that had really good usage, but it didn't show up in the box score on the stat sheet. And we're like, all right, well, maybe this is a good time to buy them because those stats will probably go up. Same thing for sells, just the opposite. Sometimes the fluke plays happen and all that, and we just want to get rid of guys while their value is hot, so we can take advantage, right? So that's what we'll normally do on Wednesdays, trades. But since it's week one, and we put out waiver stuff, but started. I mean, what are you really going to do, in terms of trades, right? At this point, I mean, you can do it. I mean, but everyone, there's a specific value that everybody, the market is kind of agreeing on what the value is for all of these players based on ADP and where they went in drafts, right? So now what we're going to do in this episode, we're going to go over a bunch of news to get you prepared for week one. Today's Wednesday. Today is the first official day where they're going to start putting out practice reports for all the teams playing on Sunday. For the teams playing tomorrow, the Bills and the Rams, they've been practicing since Monday, and those practice reports have come out on Monday. And all the games that are going to be played on Monday night every week, expect those practice reports to start coming in on Thursday, going in through Saturday. So just kind of wanted to break that down for you. But yeah, man, let's get right into it. We got a bunch of stuff to go over. Oh, and by the way, we're also going over unders. We're going to do Underdog Pick'Ems. There's a whole bunch of Pick'Ems to choose from this week. I can't wait to get started with Underdog Pick'Ems because listen, if you're already playing fantasy football, you already know what these guys' matchups are going to be. You already know what their workload is like, for the most part. So these Pick'Ems, these players, you go down these players and you're like, well, I think he can go over that. I don't think he's going to make it to this threshold. And we're going to go over that later, in the stream. I'm going to share that screen with you and we're going to go over these lines one by one. So I'm excited for that. All right. So let's get right into the news real quick. Arizona, Cliff Kingsbury, he's calling Zach Ertz day to day. He didn't, he already didn't practice for about a month now, for 4 weeks. We'll see if he ends up practicing today. And that's when we'll get that official injury designation. But, you're looking at Trey McBride, you're looking at Max Williams as his backups, right? Trey McBride probably profiles more as a pass catching guy, based on preseason usage, without Zach Ertz. Would you be rolling any of these guys out? And also, if Zach Ertz, if Zach Ertz is playing, if he's active, he'll be in my lineup. But just keep in mind that he might not play, so you might want to have a backup just in case. You might want to pick up somebody on the waiver wire right now.
Right. Now, so for me, if you're talking about Trey McBride and you're talking about Max Williams, I'm not starting either of them. I'm not throwing them in as a desperate play to kind of fill in Zach Ertz. Even if I have Zach Ertz and he's not going to play, I go to the waiver wire first. Maybe Isaiah Likely's sitting there and you just take a chance on him because you'll have Zach Ertz back most likely next week. Roll the dice week one. Maybe you get an awesome performance out of Isaiah Likely off the waiver wire or someone else. I'm not starting any of the other Cardinals tight ends. But for me, if Zach Ertz misses time, this is Rondale Moore stock going up because now there's not as much competition at all. Before you're contending with, and Zach Ertz wasn't a chump when it came to drawing targets. He was one of the most targeted tight ends when he actually joined the Cardinals last season. And we did a post on that, and that was a little while ago, but it still stands true. So Zach Ertz, make no mistake about it, he's a big target to be missing if he's not in the offense, and Rondale Moore has the opportunity to step right in, and his stock is way up for me. I'd actually like Rondale Moore as a solid flex play, maybe even wide receiver too, but, remains to be seen.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I mean, Rondell Moore did have an undisclosed injury, but it seems like he is going to be good to go. Not 100% on that just yet, but there is optimism with him because he has been practicing over the last couple days. He has been seen in practice. So just monitor the practice reports when it comes to him as well.
Right.
Don't assume that he is going to be in, but it looks to me like he's going to be in, and there's still more question marks with Zach Ertz. So this Thursday night's game, Van Jefferson, he might be out. He didn't practice on Tuesday, which is not a good sign for him playing on Thursday. I've gotten a lot of Allen Robinson questions this
Yeah.
week, whether we should start him or this guy. Like I'm playing Allen Robinson this week, okay? Like, and this is not doesn't really have to do much with Van Jefferson. Van Jefferson missing does help Allen Robinson, but
Hmm.
um, Al Robinson's been my answer to most of those start sit questions involving him. Um, so I wouldn't overthink it here. Play Al Robinson. I'm going to have him ranked as like a, high end wide receiver two to mid wide receiver two. That's kind of where I have him.
Yeah, I like Allen Robinson at that spot. And like I said, I don't think for me personally, I'm kind of surprised. Like, should I be like, were they asking should you be starting Van Jefferson over Allen Robinson? Like,
No, no, no. I mean, not those two, but the
I was
point
gonna
is that
say,
like they're telling me they're asking me, should I start Allen Robinson or like Russell Gage or Allen Robinson or like Isaiah McKenzie or
oh
like Allen
yeah,
Robinson and like you know and even these high end guys, like for example, even Juju, right? Like he's
hmm
probably going to be ranked as like a low end wide receiver two for me, high end wide receiver three, something like that. Yeah,
yep,
I'm going to play Allen Robinson, right? Like that's the range where I have him in, and I'm still playing him over a lot of receivers. So there's not
hmm
many receivers that I'm going to be playing over Allen Robinson. Maybe like 10 to 13, 14 wide receivers over Allen Robinson, but that's about it.
right. I just look back at last year's usage between Cooper Cup and Robert Woods, and I figure Allen Robinson is arguably more talented than Robert Woods was, especially he's a little bit younger, but I just look back at that usage, and that kind of gives me the confirmation and the justification that Allen Robinson is going to get the targets because he is a big target. You forget what he was just because he had an off season last season in Chicago, which you can't really blame him for. I mean, it was just a rough season all around. But now here's Matthew Stafford throwing the ball to him. If the usage is anything like Robert Woods, I'd bet Allen Robinson outproduces what Robert Woods did. So I'm comfortable starting him. I don't have any
Yeah,
trouble.
I
It's
hear
not
you.
even really a
Now,
thought.
yeah, exactly, exactly. That's why I'm surprised. So Isaiah McKenzie is practicing in full on the other side of the ball in that Thursday night game. His status was in question coming into the week, but he looks like he's going to be good to go. I do think in this matchup, he's a solid PPR flex, like in what can be a shootout. I
Right.
know Jalen Ramsey lines up in the slot a ton, but this defense's attention is not going to be on McKenzie. It's going to be on Stephon Diggs. It's going to be on Gabriel Davis. So if you want to throw McKenzie in your flex, if if you're desperate, because you're taking him like super late in drafts, so like
Yeah.
you probably don't need him. But some people are playing multiple flex leagues, 3 wide receivers, and you need someone to throw in. I think in this particular matchup, the total is looking like it's around 52. That's a high
hmm
point total. So you can go ahead and throw McKenzie in your flex if you have to. Now, it seems like a lot of people are high on Damian Pierce this week.
Yeah.
And as you should be, you should be high on Damian Pierce. Like, I'm a big fan of Damian Pierce. I've been a fan of Damian Pierce before the draft even began. But just keep in mind that they're playing the Colts, right? There's
hmm
no guarantee that they're going to be in a neutral or positive game script. In fact, the Colts are favored by 7.5 points in this game. And
Right.
I love Damian Pierce, but if they're passing a whole lot in the second half, we might be seeing a lot of Rex Burkhead on the field. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's the thing that we have to keep in mind with early down running backs, like on teams that, who might not be great on offense, they're a bit risky. So,
Yeah.
if Rex Burkhead can get out of the way at some point, I think a 3 down workload can potentially be in Pierce's future. And you never know, like maybe we see a little bit of that in week one. But
hmm
don't get cute with Pierce and start him over better running backs who have a better role than he does. So, I'll have him ranked as like a low end RB2 or close to a low end RB2 this week,
Yeah.
if that. But just kind of like just let's all calm down, right? I know like he's that new shiny piece, and you want him to do well because you got him relatively late in drafts. But in this matchup, just be careful because if he's not on the field on passing downs and the Colts go up big, which is what Vegas thinks is going to happen in this game, you might be a little disappointed.
Right. No, I'm with you. And I love Dameon Pierce. Don't get me wrong. I think a lot of people are riding the high of, especially if you drafted like 2 weeks ago before he was clearly the RB1. People are riding that high that, he's the RB1 and that they see RB1. They're like, oh, this must be, 3-down workload, that kind of thing. That's not necessarily the case. I think you're 100% right. Temper expectations. And like you said, the Colts defense, it's not anything to sneeze at. They have DeForest Buckner still. They have Shaquille Leonard. Like they have all these guys, playmakers. Like you said, Vegas likes Indianapolis to go up big over Houston. I like that too. This is still the same Texans team. I know there's hype around it, and I kind of been hyping them up a little bit. This is still Houston. This is still the Texans. They're still going to be a low end team, and they'll have to get their feet under them before they actually make some noise. This could be like, I don't want to call it a trap game for Dameon Pierce owners, but at the same time, it's like you said, the hype seems to be outweighing the actual reality of what it could be, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It does. Another guy we're hoping that will come through in week 1 is Michael Thomas. He appears to be on track to play in week 1. If he plays, he's going to be in my lineup, okay, as a wide receiver 3, okay? And if he keeps playing, he stays healthy week by week, he'll likely, keep moving up, right?
Yeah.
Because we know he's talented. We know he could be a wide receiver 1, fantasy wide receiver 1. I won't rank him like a fantasy wide receiver 1 this week, but most likely you want him in your lineup if he's going to play.
Yeah.
Now, if he does play, Chris Olave probably on my bench as a wait and see, right? In terms of how target share plays out and all of that. There's no guarantee that Chris Olave kind of gets those targets right away in week 1. So it's a little bit of a wait and see. If I'm desperate, sure, I can throw him out there. But for now, I think the only sure play that I would make in the Saints passing game is Michael Thomas. And it could definitely turn into, you're playing Michael Thomas every week. You're playing Chris Olave every week. Jarvis Landry becomes a flex every week. They could easily turn into that. But let's wait and see what that target share, looks like in week 1.
Right. And you're right. The safest bet, Michael Thomas. And that's the only one that I'd be surefire starting this week. Absolutely. Alvin Kamara is there too. He's going to be getting targets. And I'm not saying that Jameis Winston's really a dump off guy, but Alvin Kamara, he draws targets. They have plays designed specifically that they throw to Alvin Kamara. So I think that they're going to turn to Alvin Kamara in a tight situation if the game gets close or anything like that before they turn to Chris Olave, the rookie that they just took, or even Jarvis Landry. I think that you hit the nail on the head with that. I'm just kind of agreeing in long form.
Yeah, no, I hear you, man. So Darren Waller moving on to Las Vegas. He said he plans to play this week. It seems like it wasn't just a hamstring injury. It's also a contract dispute.
Yeah.
That he's having with the team. I would count on him being in the lineup this week. He did say he's going to play. So it's looking to me like he's going to play. The contract situation is probably what held him out a little bit more, rather than the hamstring injury. So it doesn't seem to me like he's going to be, an issue this week. I wouldn't necessarily go out of my way to pick up an extra tight end. If you have to last minute, whatever. But for now, I think I'm okay with Darren Waller. Now, it doesn't look promising for Kenneth Walker to play this week. How are we feeling about Rashad Penny? They're going up against the Broncos.
Yeah, so the Broncos, they're a good team. I'm not expecting this to be a game where the Seahawks are going to be able to run the ball. The Broncos, I feel like, are just going to smack the Seahawks. That's my instant, that's my gut feeling about the way the game's going to go, which means that a guy like Rashad Penny isn't going to be getting many of the touches that we really want him to. And your guy that you said about Travis Homer, I think that's who you're talking about. He could be on the field for passing downs over Rashad Penny. Rashad Penny's really polarizing because we all remember what he was at the end of the season last season, but that really came out of nowhere and nobody really expected that. And that's what kind of has me thinking, okay, is that repeatable? Is that going to happen again? Definitely not week 1 because this is going to be a game that the Seahawks are going to have to be throwing a lot. At least that's what I think. If things go Russell Wilson's way. But yeah, I think I'm not even really comfortable starting Rashad Penny as a running RB2. As a flex, maybe. But RB2, I'm not really enamored with that idea.
It's a similar thing that we just talked about with Dameon Pierce, right? Like early down backs in a game where the opponent is favored by a lot, not ideal.
Right.
Travis Homer, I wouldn't be surprised if Travis Homer ends up with more PPR fantasy points than Rashad Penny. Now, I'm not starting Travis Homer, but I
Right.
wouldn't be surprised if Homer is the guy on the field for most of the snaps in the fourth quarter when they're trying to catch up.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, like Penny's talented. Like we saw him win people fantasy championships last year.
Yeah.
So I'm okay playing him because he has that breakaway ability, he has that big play ability. Just know that it's a little bit risky, right? They
Mm-hmm.
do have a different quarterback now, like last year with Russell Wilson being on the field with Rashad Penny, that makes a difference. Where I'm not sure if defenses are going to key in on the pass game. Like obviously they have guys like DK Metcalf, they have Tyler Lockett, but Geno Smith is still their quarterback. So how much respect are they going to give that pass game? Right? Last
Right.
year, obviously you have to respect Russell Wilson a little bit, right? So the offense might not be as good as it is now. They didn't have to worry as much about negative game scripts last year with Russell Wilson. Could be a little bit of a different story. But just like Damian Pierce, I think Rashad Penny is going to end up being in my ranks around a low end running back too, something like that, with
Yeah.
upside. Now, this is a little bit of a surprise to me. Sterling Shepard coming back from the dead. He's planning on playing in week 1 against the Titans. Didn't see this coming, to be honest with you. Like I can't imagine
No,
him
I
having
didn't
a
either.
big role though, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm still treating Wandale Robinson the same way, like a guy who's on my bench, hoping that he's their starting and primary slot wide receiver.
Yeah.
But like Shepard playing can throw a wrench into those plans. Like we'll see what they do. Like I just can't imagine Shepard playing a big role with him coming off the Achilles injury, and we haven't
Yeah.
really seen much of Shepard at all in camp, right? So like, does this affect your boy? Like, how does this affect you and your boy Wandale?
Okay. So I'm it's not that I'm turned off completely now to Wandale Robinson for week 1, but I'm just looking at some game logs here for Sterling Shepard. Um Coming back from injury, last season he missed 2 games and then he came back from injury. He got 14 targets. Missed another game, got 7 targets. Missed another game, he got 4, but then 6 after that. Like Sterling Shepard's going to get the ball thrown to him because it's still Daniel Jones throwing the ball. So, for me, I'm a little bit more concerned about Wandale Robinson's, volume now. I'm not concerned about talent, obviously. I think it was a lot more secure before Sterling Shepard said he was going to come back, like you said, from the dead and play this week. I think Shepard could be a decent flex if you want to bet on volume, but I'm not saying that he's going to be anything spectacular. I mean, they're playing Tennessee. I'm looking at the matchup. I don't want to say that they're
It's a
going to
good
be.
matchup, but like, can you
Yeah.
trust Sterling Shepard like in week 1? Like, I wouldn't, man. Like, even if I'm in like a 14 teamer or something like that, and I'm looking for
Mhm.
guys like on the on waivers, like I'll
Right.
see Sterling Shepard there, and he's gonna play, but like. It's gonna take a lot for me to put Sterling Shepard.
Yeah.
Like him coming off the Achilles, like not seeing him at all at training camp. Man, that would be tough for me to do.
Yeah. No,
Now, like you said, would I be surprised if he gets like 8 targets?
mhm.
Right?
Right.
Like I don't know. Like how much is he going to play? That's another question.
Yeah.
And they
It's
do
a
have
bet
other
on
wide
volume.
receivers.
Yeah, it's a bet on volume with Sterling Shepard, which you don't really like to do, especially in fantasy football, because volume can be there, but they can catch 2 of 8 passes. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, Sterling Shepard, he's quarterback friendly, but Daniel Jones also is quarterback. There's a lot of things going against him. I wouldn't be like taking Sterling Shepard and being like, "Yep, this is definitely a solid flex play for me this week." No, I'd rather put Wandale Robinson in there as my flex. But I'm slightly less happy with Wandale Robinson's prospects than I was before, but I'm not too worried about it.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what kind of role Sterling Shepard ends up playing, for the Giants this year. But him coming back early, it definitely might throw a wrench into things for Wandale Robinson in his full-time role that we thought he was going to have out of the slot. Maybe he still gets it. He was still an
Right.
early pick for them. Maybe they decided to move on. We'll see.
Mhm.
Now, moving on to the Bucks. Chris Godwin said that nobody knows whether he's going to play in week 1, and he just shedded his protective knee brace. And to me, but like the way he was talking, like him saying that he wants to be available for the second half of the year, all of that, uh, he's looking a little iffy for this game in week 1.
Mhm.
Now, if he doesn't play, that opens the door for Russell Gage to have a full-time role in week 1, which means I'd love to have him in my lineup if I need him, right? And
Right.
my guess is that he would be running out of the slot a ton with Evans and Julio on the outside. I'm very interested to see how much Julio plays. Does he play situationally? Do they try and make him an every down player? I'm looking forward to watching this offense, to see how they roll. Obviously, you want to see that what it looks like with Godwin. But even
Yeah.
without Godwin, I want to see how they use Russell Gage and how productive he is, and whether Julio makes a big impact on this offense or not.
Mm-hmm. And I don't think even if Chris Godwin does play, that he's going to have to step out and make a huge impact immediately because they have
Mm-hmm.
Russell Gage and Julio Jones.
Mm-hmm.
I think if he does play, he's going to be on snap count. I don't think that I wouldn't be starting Chris Godwin as Chris Godwin this week, if that makes sense. We know Chris
Mm-hmm.
Godwin as just solid, good receiver. He's going to be there, put up a consistent 18, 20 points with Tom Brady throwing to him. But I'm not starting him as Chris Godwin this week. I'm starting him as, I'm not even sure I would be starting him. Well, maybe. Depends. I wouldn't put him in as a wide receiver too. I put him in as a flex because of the questionableness of his injury. I don't, obviously, if he doesn't play, we're not going to start him. But if he does play, I'm not starting him as Chris Godwin. He is going to be on a snap count in my mind. They're going to be throwing to Julio Jones. They're going to be throwing to Russell Gage and Mike Evans. They have plenty of weapons there.
Yeah.
There's no reason to force Godwin on the field when they have the whole rest of the season to play.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true. I think that's how they're going to handle him. I don't think they're going to throw him out there, and I don't think he's going to be there for every pass play. He might have a 50%, share on passing downs. It's very possible. And then Russell Gage is doing his thing. So yeah, I mean, if Godwin plays, like I'll play him as like maybe a wide receiver 3, maybe like low end wide receiver 3, something like that. And you never know, maybe he does his thing. But that's kind of how I'd roll, because you didn't draft him that early anyway, right? You drafted him in like the 6th round, something like that. Maybe 7th, depending on your league. So
you
might
knew
not
what
be
you were getting
forced
with
to start him.
You knew what you were getting with them when you drafted him there.
And you probably ended up drafting guys for insurance because you knew that he might not play week 1. Right. Another guy who might end up playing week 1 is Ty Montgomery. And if he does play, that might diminish Ramondre Stevenson's role a bit. But this is Bill Belichick, right? It's still possible Montgomery's kind of hurt, right? Like he's never going to tell you exactly who's going to play and who's not on a Wednesday or a Tuesday. So, let me ask you a question. Like, would you throw Ramondre in your flex this week? Let's say Montgomery doesn't play. Would you feel comfortable throwing Ramondre in your flex?
Yeah, without a doubt. I have no hesitation throwing Ramondre at the flex. And that's just because, there's been so much hype around him. They've been talking about, they're going to use him more in the pass game. He's going to take over that role. Damian Harris looks to be, early down and goal line. But then if the Patriots go down at all, or if they just need to get moving on the field, 3rd down plays, like Ramondre Stevenson is going to be the guy. And like we know, pass catching is much more valuable than just standard running backs. That's where you kind of compare him to like Damian Harris, who had the 15 rushing touchdowns on the ground, but he had no upside outside of the touchdowns. I have no problem with Ramondre Stevenson. I mean, Mac Jones, I'm not calling him a check down guy yet. It's been 1 season, but he's not to the point yet where he's throwing downfield with confidence to the point that I'm like, okay, this is going to be a big play offense. The wide receivers can be upgraded. This is going to be an offense that targets the running backs a lot. I think Ramondre Stevenson is good at the flex. I have no problem with him at flex. I wouldn't start him as running backs in either of my 2 running back slots, but I think he can fill in a pinch.
I hear that. Now, DJ Cochino is asking, going back to Julio real quick. He said you might start Julio over Elijah Moore, Rashad Bateman. Would you?
I don't know if I would. Maybe. No, not now. Because Elijah Moore, even we know Joe Flacco is now starting week 1 for the Jets.
Yes. And by the way, Joe Flacco, you brought it up, so we'll talk about it. Joe Flacco might end up starting until week 4. So week 1, week 2, and week 3. It seems like Zach Wilson, the earliest he can start, according to Robert Saleh now, is actually week 4.
Yeah, no, okay. So that's definitely something to consider. Just for this week 1, though, I'm starting Elijah Moore over Julio.
Me too.
Without a doubt. Because this guy is he's the wide receiver 1 on the Jets. And even though, it will be Joe Flacco, they have played together before. It's not like there's no rapport there, and this is just some random guy coming in, like Andy Dalton coming in to throw to Amari Cooper with the Cowboys that 1 year. So it's not like they don't have rapport. Elijah Moore is going to be fine. And Rashad Bateman, he's a statistical darling. Everyone loves him. And he's actually still undervalued for me where he's going in drafts. I'm starting Rashad Bateman over Julio too.
Me too. Me too. Me too. It's a good call out. This is a good one, man, because Julio is very attractive. Especially if Godwin is out, right?
Right.
And I get it, but Julio is more of a flex play, and we don't know how they're going to use him. He could be used situationally, and even if he does get used situationally, yes, can he catch a touchdown? Yeah, he can. He catch two? Yeah, he can. He's capable of that. But I think, go with the guys who is going to get the volume, right? And that's Elijah
Right.
Moore, and that's Rashad Bateman.
Definitely.
And just to touch on this one, am I starting Elijah over Waddle? I'm not. Like I think Waddle's going to be ranked around the Allen Robinson range, mid wide receiver 2. Elijah probably high end wide receiver 3, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I would still start Jalen Waddle over Elijah Moore. Okay, moving on. There are a few other things I wanted to cover real quick. Doug Peterson, said that James Robinson will be active for Week 1. How big of a role do you think he's going to play?
So I've always looked for comparisons around the league to how they're going to be used, because for me that kind of gives me an idea of whether I want to start them or not. And this Travis Etienne, James Robinson lineup kind of reminds me of DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams. And if that's the case, don't worry about Travis Etienne. And, maybe James Robinson has a little value. The only way James Robinson's going to have value is if he scores like a goal line touchdown or something like that. If he gets in at the goal line and he runs in for a touchdown. Otherwise, I could see his stat line looking a lot like, 8 or 10 carries, 30 some yards, and maybe a catch or two for 20. And that's not really startable in fantasy. I'm not worried too much about his role. I think James Robinson's in need of a new home, and maybe he could be a trade candidate. I mean, I don't know how many people are looking for a James Robinson when you have like a Kareem Hunt out there who might be traded. But I don't think the Jaguars are too excited to hand James Robinson any of the important touches over Travis Etienne, a guy they drafted with their first pick, with one of their first round picks. Just
Yeah,
I
I don't think James Robinson's going to play a huge role, especially in Week 1. And also, it's like we're kind of looking at James Robinson as a potential goal line guy, but Travis Etienne is also like a relatively he's a good sized back too, 5'10",
Oh right, yeah.
215. So it's not like James Robinson is like the guy on goal lines. It could easily be Travis Etienne also.
Mm-hmm.
And the difference between that and the Lions is that DeAndre Swift might not get all the goal line work. That might be Jamal Williams' work. So Etienne could potentially be in a pretty good situation in Jacksonville, if he gets the money touches, and it's very possible that he does. So I'm starting Travis Etienne still, as a solid RB2, and I'm not starting James Robinson.
I'm
I'm
not
not
worrying
considering
about
it.
James Robinson either. Some Travis
Yeah,
Etienne
I'm not
owners might
worried
be like
about it.
worried about it. I'm not.
Yeah. I'm not worried about it either, and I don't want to start him as a flex either. I don't want to start James Robinson as a flex.
Right.
I know some people are considering it. I wouldn't. I'll wait and see to see what that offense looks like, see what he looks like, and see what the share looks like before I get crazy.
Yep.
Matt LaFleur, he was non-committal on Alan Lazard and his status for Week 1. If Lazard doesn't go, would you put Romeo Doubs in your flex? Would you play
Yes.
Christian Watson if he plays?
I wouldn't go
Watson's a
Christian
shot at
Watson.
playing.
Yeah, I wouldn't go Christian Watson.
But you would play Romeo Doubs in your flex this week.
I think so, but that's only if Alan Lazard doesn't play.
Yes.
Gotcha. I'm not big on either Romeo Doubs or Christian Watson right now for Week 1. But if Alan Lazard doesn't play, then maybe Romeo Doubs has that value, because Christian Watson's also working back from an injury. Granted, it wasn't that major; it's just something that came up in training camp in the preseason. Right. But I know people might be like, Zach, you said that Christian Watson's a better receiver out of them two over Romeo Doubs because he's athletic. Well, maybe in the long term for the season, yes, I still believe that. But for Week 1, Romeo Doubs, I'm starting him because he's healthy, and he's had the hype around his name. Like Aaron Rodgers talking him up. If Alan Lazard doesn't play, where's Aaron Rodgers going to be looking to throw? Like, he hasn't thrown to Robert Tonyan in forever. And all the other receivers, I mean, Sammy Watkins, like I said, we keep going back to Sammy Watkins Week 1, but I don't see that happening. So Romeo Doubs would be a good flex play for me because Rodgers has to throw somebody, and it's still Aaron Rodgers.
I hear that, man. There's nothing else to say there. I pretty much agree with what you're saying for the most part. Let's get right into the underdog stuff, man. We're going to go over Underdog Pick'Ems now. And this is going to give you some good, is one reason why looking at, these Pick'Ems is actually going to help you for fantasy and actually potentially help you make lineup decisions for fantasy. And I'm going to tell you how, okay, in a second. So let me share that real quick. I want to make sure that we're all set. You can see my screen, right, Zach?
Yeah, I see it.
Okay, sounds good. So the reason why I say that before we get into the actual picks for this week and specifically for Thursday night is that let's say you're trying to decide between Devin Singletary and, well, there's no James Cook line here. But let's say you're trying to decide between Devin Singletary and Cam Akers. Just an example. Okay. You're probably starting Cam Akers, right?
Yeah.
But if you want to see, like, hey, like, what does Vegas, or what does Underdog expect these guys to do? Look at the line. 48.5 rushing yards, 67.5 combined yards right here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Look at they expecting, around 12 rushing attempts or so, right? And that's why these higher those over unders are kind of like around that
Gold.
around that spot, right? And then
Yeah.
you go ahead and look at Cam Akers. They're not expecting a whole lot. They're only expecting 12 rushing attempts here, right? But
Mhm.
they're expecting Darrell Henderson to be somewhat involved as well. So, that's how you can kind of, like, if you really, like, in my opinion, I'm going to start Cam Akers here. However,
Yeah.
it's one of the situations where, like, if you have like a really, really tough decision, you can look at these and say, like, oh, okay, like, this is what they're expecting. If one guy is a lot higher than the other, like, you're like, all right, maybe I should, go with these guys, right?
Right.
Look at Alvin Kamara. Alvin Kamara is over here. You can see the rushing plus receiving is 95. So obviously they're expecting him to have a really good game, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of like, what I would do. Like, if I'm really in a pinch, you can look over here and kind of decide that. So with that being said, I do want to talk about one. So here's how these pick'ems work. Okay. If you see this multiplier on the right side here, you can pick up to 5 picks here, and this is the multiplier right underneath it, right? So basically you can 3x, 6x, 10x, or 20x your money. All right, depending on how much you put in here, right? So let's say, if I put in, $5 into here, and I pick 5 picks and I get all of them right, I get $100. Okay. Now, Underdog has recently introduced a new feature called insurance. And what this does is that it changes the payouts a little bit. However, it allows you to get a pick wrong. So
Mhm.
if I choose, and they just released this a couple days ago. Okay. So if I choose 5 picks here and I get all of them right, I get 20x. However, if I get one of them wrong, I lose my money. Right. However, if I choose 5 picks here, if I get all of them right, I get 10x my money. But if I get one wrong, I can still 6x my money. You know what I mean? So, like, that's a pretty good feature right there. So, it's in the betting world, it's kind of like a parlay, but it's not a parlay. Because if you
Yeah.
do a parlay, you lose all your money if one of them doesn't work out, right?
Mhm.
So it's a really cool feature. So I would take advantage of that. Now, I want to get into these lines here. Now, one line that I do like here is this Josh Allen over 317.5 yards, and this includes passing and rushing. Okay.
Mhm.
So, I think this game is going to be a little bit of a shootout. I really do. Right.
Yeah.
Is that how you're looking at this game too? That's what it feels like to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's
It's
the
like
way
the
it goes.
fireworks on Thursday night.
Yeah, you have 2 very good teams, 2 teams that I thought might have been the Super Bowl matchup if not for the Chiefs game, obviously last season. But this is 2 awesome teams, and it's like people tend to be worried about, they're like, "Oh, the Rams have a really good defense. No way Josh Allen hits 317." It's like, no. It tends to not matter when you have 2 teams coming together what the matchups are. Like, they just go crazy, or they have a really gritty game. I'm just betting on this one. They scheduled it, Thursday night, the kickoff, for a reason. There's gonna be fireworks. 317, I think, is an easy one to hit.
100%. So by the way, like, this is on Underdog, and you can combine these picks, put them all together, and then you can win. You can multiply your money 3x, 6x, 10x, and 20x. So this is one of them that I do like, and this game's over under. I think the line, the total on this one is set at 52. Yeah, it's set at 52 right now. So that's legit. So that's a high projected score. So
Mhm.
that's one of them that I like. The combined rushing and passing for Josh Allen to go higher. Other than that, I think, 2.5 total, over 2.5 total touchdowns kind of looks a little tempting as well. But I think that this one right here is one of my favorites. I think Josh Allen went over this a bunch of times last year. Over 300 total yards a bunch of times last year. So this is one that I like to pick.
Right.
Um, Moving down below, Devin Singletary, obviously, this is going to be a little bit of a committee. Um, but man, like it's really tough to gauge what Devin Singletary's role, is going to look like. You know,
Mm-hmm.
48 and a half rushing yards, for me, if he's going to get over that, that means that he's being used, relatively heavily, in the run game, right?
Right.
Um, so, to me, like if I was to bet on any of these, it would probably be lower on the 67 and a half rushing and receiving yards.
Mm-hmm.
Like, do you think Devin Singletary's role is going to be that significant for him to have, this many combined yards in this game?
I don't think so. Yeah, I think it's too much of a committee. I don't like really any Devin Singletary bets. The only one that I would consider would be, maybe 12 rushing attempts because I don't
With
see
a
him in the passing game.
higher on that?
I would go higher. Yeah.
You would go higher on that. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I can see that. I can see that. But like for me, like if I had to, choose one of these, it'll probably be lower on the combined rushing and receiving yards
Mm-hmm.
for him.
Yeah.
So Steph Diggs, this is not one I would choose to do personally. Like this can go, any sort of way, with Diggs because Jalen Ramsey potentially being on Diggs this game. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
This could end up being a Gabe Davis game. If the Rams choose to do
Yeah.
that, who knows what they're going to do? It's possible that they keep um, Jalen Ramsey, in that power spot, in the middle of the field, closer to the slot. Just because they have different schemes to cover these wide receivers on the outside, but yeah, I wouldn't touch this one. I probably wouldn't touch the Gabe Davis one either. Um, if yeah, I'm not touching either of these personally.
Yeah. A lot of people, will jump on the Gabe Davis pick. They'll be like, "Oh, Gabe Davis 4 receptions." That's gonna
Yeah.
be crazy because they're looking at, the last game that the Bills played in last season where he
Yep.
put up the 200 yards and 4 touchdowns. You forget Gabe Davis eclipsed 4 receptions 2 times in the regular season last season.
Right.
So he's a big play threat. If I'm going to bet either of those, maybe I pick over the 59 and a half receiving yards because this is going to be, like I said, probably fireworks, a big scoring game. So if I was going to bet either of them, I will, but I'm not thrilled with either of those.
Yeah. Yeah. I wouldn't do that. I mean, because he can still get, 4 catches for 90 yards and a touchdown, right? Because
Yeah.
he's that type of player. Like he's a big play guy. Um.
He
So
could
yeah,
easily be like a, 3 for 123 and a touchdown. I kind of see
this
like he's just a big play threat.
this Dawson Knox one is very tricky, right? Like this is one of those traps. I feel like because,
Hmm.
by the way, he just got that extension. Did you see that?
Yes, he did. Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, he got a big extension right there. They cut OJ Howard and they extended him. A little bit of vote of confidence. So if you drafted Dawson Knox as your tight end one and you see that extension, you're probably like, "Whoo!" Like they
Yeah.
believe in him.
Right.
They saw some good things from him, right? This preseason and this training camp. Otherwise, they probably wouldn't have extended him the way that they did. So,
Yeah.
that's a good sign. But with Dawson Knox, like I want a touchdown, pick
Yeah.
'em, right? Like,
Maybe.
that's what I want. Like, I want a point 5 over, touchdown pick 'em.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
what I
Yeah.
want. But that's not here. He can like Dawson Knox is the type of player to literally give you 35 yards and a touchdown.
Hmm.
Yeah, and like, the receiving yards, that's completely random with Dawson Knox, and so are the receptions. So I'm staying away from
Yeah.
that one as well, personally. Um,
Yeah. I wouldn't.
now, now this one, Isaiah McKenzie, I kind of like this one here. You know,
Could
I
be.
like kind of like this one. Over 3 receptions, maybe. I can see
Hmm.
him getting 4 or 5 grabs in this game. You know, this might
Yeah.
be one that I choose, to go higher on the reception total. This dude can easily get like 5 catches for like 27 yards.
Yeah.
But the reception number, as we've seen with Cole Beasley in the past, the reception number can be there, especially in a game where we think that it's going to be competitive. So if
Yeah.
McKenzie is truly their their full-time slot receiver, I can easily see him going over this 3 receptions. So, he might be there for me.
Hmm. No, I
Yeah.
think that 3 receptions might be a good bet, but I think honestly, I would actually probably take the 35 over the 35 higher than 35 receiving
Mm.
yards or 35. Yeah. It'd be higher than
Yep.
35. It'd have to be 36. Yeah. I'd
So
take that
so
one.
Zach's going with the higher on the receiving yards. I'm going on the higher with the receptions.
Because the thing is, if you're right with the receptions, I have a hard time thinking that he's not going to have a couple receptions of 15 yards. You know what I'm saying? And I
Maybe,
feel like it's really easy to
maybe.
hit that because
But
out of
listen,
the slot, usually they're coming
yeah.
across the middle, the intermediate routes, and if he gets hit on 3 intermediate routes, I feel like that adds up to over 35.
No, I hear you. That's assuming they're averaging like 10 yards a catch because but I'm not assuming that for this role because like the Bill slot role, like we've seen that their depth of target has been super low. So like I wouldn't be surprised if he catches if he does catch 4 balls, I would not be surprised if it's under 35 receiving yards, to be honest with you. Like I know the chances are that he goes over that, but
Right.
yeah, no, I hear you. This one's a little surprising. Jamison Crowder, only having 1 less reception, on these pickums than Isaiah McKenzie. That one's
Mm,
interesting to me. If McKenzie has been practicing in full, so it seems like he's ready to go. Jamison Crowder doesn't even, to me, it's not obvious that him and Khalil Shakir, you know, are that far away from each other either, right? So
yeah.
I'm not sure. I mean, 2 receptions is so low that for me to hit lower on the receptions, being he'll only catch one
Mm,
ball, like I wouldn't do that. So I wouldn't mess with Jamison Crowder's
yeah.
uh
It's easier to just
pick him.
ignore that one. Plenty of
Yeah,
other bets.
exactly. All right. Moving on to the Rams now. Looking at Matthew Stafford, I can see myself going over the 2 passing touchdowns in this one.
Mm,
But the Buffalo's defense, isn't, they're a bit stingy, right?
yeah.
They're not going to have their top corner, in this game. So, we could see Matt Stafford doing his thing. With these pocket passers, like I do love like these props, like these ones right here, the one and
Yeah.
a half
That's what
rushing
I'm
yards.
kind of eyeing up.
Like the 1.5 rushing yards for him to just like get a couple yards to get a first down. Like I like to add these, in there because when he does it, you're just like so happy. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like now, if he does end up scrambling and he gets a sack, you could see that go down. But this is one that I'm looking at here. I kind of like the 36.5 passing attempts. Like I can see him getting to 40, closer to 40 passing attempts in this
Yeah.
game as well. Just because I think it is going to be a shootout. I don't know how much they're going to lean on Cam Akers in this game or Dal Henderson in this game.
Mm,
They're both coming off injuries, right? Even though
right.
they've been ready last week, but this might end up being on Matt Stafford's shoulders, in week 1.
I think so. I think that's how it's going to end up being because you have
Yeah,
Josh Allen on the other side. It's just going to be awesome. I'm so excited.
I hear that, man. Let's take a little bit of a break and just answer a couple questions here. So, um, I got a question. We got a question here from Christopher Valdez. Um, who would you drop for Christian Watson? Would you drop Romeo Dubs and Naheem Hines? He has both Penny and Walker. Who
Hmm.
would you drop? Would you drop Romeo Dubs for Christian Watson or Naheem Hines for Christian Watson?
Uh, if I'm gonna,
See, this is
if
how
I,
I'm dealing with. I'll tell you how I'm dealing with Romeo Dubs. Right, if
hmm
Christian Watson doesn't play this week, I think I leave him on the waiver wire and I keep Romeo Dubs because Romeo Dubs' value can go up
right,
right after week 1. Christian Watson's value won't. Right, this is what I was
yeah,
explaining yesterday on the podcast. It's a little complicated, right? I understand this is a complicated like way of going
yeah,
about it, but if Romeo Dubs shits the bed right, this week, then I
hmm
would go ahead and start and pick up Christian Watson if I can. That's
right,
kind of how I'm dealing with it. Naheem Hines, I would keep Naheem Hines over all of these guys, over Christian Watson
over
and
Penny,
Romeo Dubs.
over Penny. No,
No, no, no,
I don't
no.
know
I
about that.
think he's
Yeah,
just
yeah, yeah,
saying for whatever reason he's saying he has Penny and Walker. We're not going to touch those guys. Keep those guys on your roster. But between Christian Watson, Romeo Dubs, and Naheem Hines, I'm going to keep Naheem Hines on my roster. I think that kind of makes it simple enough for Chris.
yeah.
Would you trade Michael Thomas for Scary Terry? Is this a no-brainer?
So
Or
it
is it
depends.
closer than we think?
Are you getting Scary Terry or are you getting Michael Thomas? You know what I'm saying?
He's getting
Um,
Scary Terry. The
if he's
way that he
getting
asked this
Scary,
question, he's getting Scary Terry.
yeah, if he's getting Scary Terry, I don't know if I would. I kind of like
I
Michael
would.
Thomas's upside.
I would
I
do it.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
What makes
I
you
would
say
I
that?
would I would do it. Michael Thomas, he has the upside, right? No doubt.
I think he
But
has the quarterback too. That's kind of what's
he does
pushing
have the
me.
quarterback. I agree. But and I understand Scary Terry's situation is scary right now, but he's proven that he can be a number one wide receiver in this league. He's healthy. And even with, that quarterback that he has there is an upgrade from what he had before, to be honest. So
Right.
I'm taking Terry here if I can. If I can avoid the Michael Thomas drama, if there is any, I would. And that's why Scary Terry is being drafted, several rounds before Michael Thomas. So yes, I'm doing that. And a lot more people in your league will value Terry more than Michael Thomas right now. So, maybe you take that and then you flip Scary Terry again for somebody else, right away.
Yeah.
Take the value while you can. That's what I would do.
That's a good way to think about it.
Yeah, I think so. Would you start AJ Dillon or Cam Akers? I have Aaron Jones. Would you diversify here and just go Cam Akers?
Yeah. I would
Yeah,
go Cam Akers.
I
There's
would
no
as
reason
well.
to start two running backs from the same backfield. That makes no sense.
Yep. Chris is thanking us. You're welcome, Chris. All right,
Yeah.
let's go back to Underdog real quick. All right, so look at these Cam Akers over unders here, higher lowers
Mhm.
here. This isn't that bad, right? But 12 rushing attempts, right? That's
Yeah.
that's the interesting one here, right? That's where it gives you pause to say, like, should I start Cam Akers or not? There is going to be points scored in this game. He could get some goal line looks. That's where his value is going to come in. I feel like this week.
And
Um,
that's why there's
so
no touchdown prop.
that's why there's no touchdown prop
There's no
here. Okay.
touchdown. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's something to look at. For me personally, I don't think I'm going to be touching this one, man.
Yeah.
I don't see anything here that's interesting or that stands out.
I don't think I'm touching Darrell Henderson or Cam Akers just because there's been so much ambiguity around how they're going to be used.
100%.
I can't even bet on volume at this point.
Exactly. Now, the one that does stand out a little bit, if I look at Darrell Henderson, is his 7 rushing attempts. I might look at I might look at higher here on the 7 rushing attempts
Maybe.
for Darrell Henderson.
I might look at higher on the 2 receptions.
Mhm.
I can
Now,
kind of
that's the
see
thing
that.
with Darrell Henderson, like, I don't know who is gonna be the guy on passing downs,
Right.
which is crazy. Like,
It
I
could
just
be a
don't know.
mix, you know?
It could be a mix.
A regular down could turn into a passing down very quickly if things break down, the play breaks down, and then they just dump it off to whoever's on the field. Like,
Oh, yeah, that's definitely gonna happen for sure. But, like, in
mhm,
terms of, like, who's gonna be the primary guy, in terms of this is a passing down, who's gonna be on the field,
mhm.
you want it to be Cam Akers. You think it's gonna be Cam Akers, but, we have no idea at this point. So it's
Yeah.
tough to say. Um, Cooper Kupp, back to what he was doing, 7.5 receptions, 95.5 receiving yards. You know, I'm not touching that one. I mean, the
No?
bet, honestly, like, to go over the 95.5, that is probably gonna win. Because if they if they if they are doing if they, continue what they were doing last year, he's gonna go over
Mhm.
that. He's
That's what I'm
he
saying.
he's hit a
I
100-yard game, almost in every game last year.
I kinda wanna hammer that one higher. You know?
Yeah,
I feel like that's
yeah,
just the
yeah,
way things have been, and, I don't see why it would change week 1, especially in a
yeah.
big game. Like, I kinda wanna hammer that one, but, at the same time, I might be a little bit more confident in that than most, but
What do you think about the 65.5 receiving yards for Allen Robinson?
I
Are you
think
touching that
lower.
one?
I think lower. I see Allen Robinson being the guy that, he has a couple receptions, like, say, 4 receptions, 40 or 50 yards, and a touchdown, if he's
Right.
gonna do that. I don't think that
Okay.
I don't have the confidence in his workload yet. I don't know what it looks like yet to know if he's going to have the chance to get 65 yards. Obviously, the other bet is 5 receptions. I think he could hit that, but I'm going lower on the receiving yards.
I think I'm gonna go higher on the receiving yards. I think I am.
Okay.
I think
I know
I'll
you're
go
an Allen
higher on
Robinson guy,
Cooper
so that
Kupp.
doesn't surprise me, but
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go higher on Cooper Kupp, and I would go higher on Allen Robinson if I had to choose.
right.
And if I'm gonna
That's
make one of
fair.
those bets, I think I'll go with Cooper Kupp over
Yeah.
95.5.
I would go with Cooper Kupp too.
Tyler Higbee, I'm not touching that one. The
Mhm.
thing with Tyler Higbee this week, and if I'm gonna do anything with Tyler Higbee, it's gonna be under 4 receptions or
Yeah.
lower than 4 receptions. That's kinda how I would handle that one, you know?
Yep.
So yeah. Okay, so guys, we are gonna wrap this up now. That wraps it up for the Thursday night games. We are gonna have a graphic over on Instagram that kind of goes over all of
Our favorite
our
picks.
favorite picks basically for Thursday night's game, and then we're gonna have all of our favorite picks for Sunday night's game. Okay. I'm sorry, Sunday for the whole slate, and we'll also have one for Monday as well. So, I recommend, signing up for Underdog. And if you do, make sure to use code Upper Hand. I also have the link in the description of this live video, so you can just click the link. It'll automatically take you there and use my code. But your deposit will get doubled. Your first deposit will get doubled. So make sure you take advantage of that. And yeah, like we're gonna try to hammer these all season long. Every single week, we'll have some picks for you. And you should sign up for Underdog. You should review all these picks because check it out. Like they have a lot. They have a
There are a
lot.
ton of
Like
picks.
they have a
Every
ton of
player you can
stuff,
really think of, yeah.
And like you might have a lot of favorite plays for this week. And as you look at the matchups, you can have your favorite plays, and then you enter an amount here, and then you can multiply your money. You can pick 2 picks, you can pick 3 picks, you can pick 4. The more picks you make, the higher your multiplier is. That's basically how it works. Notice how Chase Edmonds only has rushing yards and not a combined from scrimmage yards, right? That's the one I would hammer home for sure. But yeah, anyway, it's interesting, man. I love playing on Underdog and doing this every single week. So anyway, appreciate you guys. We're gonna wrap it up here for Zach and myself, Faraz. We'll see you guys soon. We'll see you tomorrow. We're going to be going over quarterback and running back ranks tomorrow for week 1. And then on Friday, we'll be doing wide receiver and tight ends. So I'll see you guys soon. Take it easy.